Hey guys, I'm Urizi. This story is all about what if Naruto was assigned to Asuma and Team 10. Mizuki never got to shoot his mouth off at Naruto the night he took the Scroll of Seals. Other than skipping a half-manic monologue from him, what exactly did this change for everyone's favorite blonde ninja? Who knows? Before we proceed with the story, please like and subscribe to this channel if you liked the video, and don't forget to check the description for the other works of the author if you liked the story. Let's start. Chapter 12, The Futility of Preparation. Naruto let out a yawn as he sat in Shiho's house at her kitchen table. It had been a few days since he had returned from his very long excursion on dual missions, his original C-rank mission and Team 10's A-ranked reinforcement mission for Team 7. Asuma had told everyone that after the compounding missions had been completed, they all got a week off from doing anything, and Naruto decided to spend a few of his days doing nothing to keep from burning out. So he decided to hang out with his bookworm friend and see what she had been up to while he had been gone. He had given her the play-by-play of both missions and saw her face light up in excitement when he told her how well things had turned out. However, he saw her frown visibly when he got to the part about Zabuza and Haku. "I'm glad that worked out for you, Uzumaki-kun," Shiho said, taking a seat at the same table with tea she had prepared for both of them, "but the next time, don't ever do that again." She noticed him look down. "I know that you just wanted to save someone that you thought was your friend, but when your friend is supposed to be your enemy it could be really dangerous. What would you have done if this Haku person had been bloodthirsty enough to kill your teammates instead of incapacitate them? No report would have been able to explain that away. You would have lost your team and probably your career." "I know," Naruto said out loud. He really did know. He had played it through his head 1,000 times since it actually happened. If Shikamaru and Ino had been killed because he had wanted to do the right thing, he would probably have never gotten over it. Even now he still kicked himself 8 times every day over it. The fact that he could replicate himself and the fact that his clones had a propensity to talk shit to him when they weren't fighting didn't help matters at all either. "I don't like it, but I know that now, Shiho-chan. It won't ever happen like that again." When he said he didn't like it, that was probably the most honest thing he could have said at the moment. So now trying to be a decent human being would end up getting him and his friends killed? Apparently the world really was that messed up. And he was still too weak for what he needed to be. For him, being the muscle of Team 10, he just wasn't strong enough, and the battle with Haku proved a very valid hole in his game that Sasuke had not so subtly wordlessly pointed out afterwards, although the young Uchiha himself was unable to take advantage of it during their skirmish. If Naruto and his clones couldn't get close enough to grab his opponent, then there wasn't much he could do. If he could get close, but his opponent still could kick his head in or stab him before he grabbed them, then all of his taijutsu was pretty much useless. Now granted, not every opponent he faced would have the Sharingan to clock him and each of his clones position in slow motion as they came towards them, but that simply wasn't going to cut it any further. That just wasn't going to fly against anyone stronger than him. If he had to fight Sasuke again, he wasn't sure if he'd be able to get close that easily again, and if he ever wanted to beat Tenten he needed to step it up, because she would be throwing more weapons than Sasuke did, and he and his clones both knew that she didn't miss. Another hench trick like the one from before wouldn't save him the next time, and he wasn't as fast as he thought he was. He could be outmaneuvered, and then he and his team were in trouble. Shiho had let Naruto come over for lunch as she had been granted a short day at work and was free. It gave them both some time to catch up, and finally getting to hear about his first mission seemed like as good a way to do so as any. But now it seemed that the conversation had settled into the negative parts of his most recent experience. "What are you thinking about, Uzumaki-kun?" Naruto's face twisted slightly before he spoke. "I need to get better. I didn't need you or Asuma-sensei to tell me that we shouldn't have walked away from that. I already knew. I thought they were dead. I messed up." He looked over at Shiho, who was listening to him intently as she drank her tea. "So do you know what I can do? Until I get bigger, the scroll says I can't learn any more of the Nebaken moves that it has since I'm still short." He finished with a grumble. Shiho smiled at him. "I'm glad you're taking the scroll's advice instead of trying to force it along. It takes a big man to admit that they're little." He glared at her, getting her to laugh a bit. "I'm just messing with you, but if you want my advice you should go to your sensei about this. I don't know any ninjutsu that would be good for you, and like I said, I'm not much of a fighter." Naruto bucked out a snort from his nose as he thought about it. Do you think he'd teach me a new jutsu if I asked him? Shiho shrugged, I don't see why not. It's not like you aren't already the most adept user of Kage Bunshin in the entire village, so you don't need to finish mastering that jutsu, and you just told me you can't go any further with Nebakin without making things up the way you told me you did. I think he'd be happy to help you if you asked him to. She said supportively. Naruto perked up significantly after hearing that. Alright then, I'll wait until the next team meeting and dash dot. Shiho cut him off, you should probably ask before that. The sooner the better. Naruto nodded and stood up, I'll go right now then. He said, rather excited at this point towards the prospect of maybe learning something new. I'll see you later Shiho-chan, I've got to find Asuma-sensei right now. Shiho waved to him as he headed out towards her front door, well I hope I helped. Don't be a stranger Uzumaki-kun. If you'd like the next time you see me I'll probably have something set up for you to start learning. You might like it. He gave a small wave back as he grinned at her through the spaces in her bookcases and shut the door behind him. After leaving his friend's house, Naruto grumbled to himself as he stood in the middle of the street scratching his head, well this sucks. I don't know where Asuma-sensei lives or where he hangs out, or anything about him in general. Naruto bonked himself on the head a few times to try and jog his memory in case he had forgotten something. Maybe one of the others knows where he is. He quickly let off a preliminary burst of his sensor jutsu and smirked, and I can tell where one is right now. He said to himself as he took off down the street to find someone. Yamanaka Flower Shop. Ino leaned against the counter inside of her clan's shop waiting for business. Not much had been happening during her week off, and to keep from doing absolutely nothing for the entire week she had been conscripted to work for a day in the shop which was still rather slow going. Only now at least in addition to being bored she was also being productive. A ring of the door opening barely registered her attention as she prepared to drone out the usual response to customers entering, welcome to Ya Dash. Naruto. She said in confusion as she saw her fellow blonde teammate enter and look around, pumping his fist victoriously, what are you doing here? Yes. Naruto shouted to himself, I thought I messed up for a second and still couldn't read signs with my jutsu. He then noticed Ino looking at him blankly as if wondering why he was there. Hey Ino, how's it going? She let a humorless smile come onto her face as she sat her elbows on the counter and placed her hands under her chin. I'm so bored Naruto. Please tell me you've been doing just as much of nothing as I have. Pretty much. Naruto said, rubbing the back of his head with a salty look on his face. Ino laughed slightly. By now she knew that Naruto hated not really doing anything, so this week off was probably killing him slower than it was her. They weren't even halfway through it yet. Listen, I need your help really quick, can you? She blinked her blue eyes in a confused manner before pointing around at the store. I'm working right now Naruto. I can't leave, what if a customer comes in later? Naruto stared at her and slowly brought his fingers up into the cross seal he used to form Kage Bunshin before Ino cut him off from doing so. Knowing exactly what he was about to do, no Naruto, that's a bad idea. You don't know anything about these plants and you'd leave a hunged Kage Bunshin. He brought his fingers down to cancel attempting the jutsu, well damn Ino, I know how to water and take care of the plants and act like you long enough for you to help me out. I just want to know where Asuma-sensei is. Ino arched a feminine eyebrow at hearing what Naruto needed from her, well how would I know where he is if you don't? Check his house or something. I don't know where that is. Naruto admitted, putting his hands in his pockets and kicking at invisible dust on the ground, that's why I'm here. Where does he live? Ino shrugged helplessly, I wouldn't know. I figured either you or Shikamaru would know where he lived if anyone would know. You're out of luck this time with me. She then had another thought, why are you looking for him anyway? Naruto frowned, I'm going to see if there's anything he can do to help me get better. I almost got you guys killed back in Nami no Kuni. Kage Bunshin are cool and everything, but if that's all I've got to go with my taijutsu then I'm still too easy to scout. Ino gave him a dry look that showed her lack of amusement at how he perceived his own skills. Yes, if Naruto couldn't grab you then there wasn't much he could do other than exhaust you, and the bulk of his solo offense was directed around him doing whatever it took to get close and get a hand on his opponent. But he really underestimated his own ingenuity when it came to doing just that. Naruto's masterful use of henge to deceive his enemies was even something that Ino had worked on trying, and Shikamaru had even worked it into one of their regular strategies. If anything, Ino was the one that figured she needed to pick up something new, hence why she had taken to watching the shop today with no complaints. If she could get on her dad's good side, then maybe she could get him to help her with something else, maybe help her come up with new ways to hit Shintenshin no Jutsu without anyone helping her keep the enemy busy, or even a new jutsu altogether. Ino opened her mouth to talk Naruto down about how what happened in Nami no Kuni was all of their faults when an adult male voice sounded out from behind her. So this is Uzumaki Naruto, the third teammate I've heard so much about. Ino didn't need to turn around to know who that was, she had been hearing that voice every day of her life, and from the look in Naruto's eyes as he looked up at the man she knew she was right about who it was. "Hi Daddy," Ino said without turning around, laughing inwardly at the deer-in-the-headlights look Naruto had on his face as he looked up at her father. "Yes, this is Naruto. Naruto, this is my dad, Yamanaka Inoichi." The man had long blonde hair in a ponytail like Ino had, only his was darker in shade and spiky on top, not like his daughter's. He had blue-green eyes and wore the usual Konoha shinobi outfit in flak jacket as well as wrist and hand guards and a sleeveless red coat. Naruto slowly raised up one hand and waved weakly, "Hi Ino's dad." Ino palmed her face at Naruto's introduction to her father while the youngest blonde male continued, "Nice to meet you." The man kept a rather unnerving gaze on Naruto that lasted long enough for Ino to even turn around as she wondered what exactly the man was doing. Rolling her eyes, Ino spoke up to her father, "Daddy, stop trying to read Naruto's mind." Inoichi's face faltered and abruptly stood up, "I wasn't trying to read the boy's mind." He defended to Ino, who simply glared up at him and placed her hands on her hips as if to challenge him, "I'm being honest, I wasn't trying to." "Then why were you staring at Naruto so hard?" she asked, gesturing back to Naruto who seemed to be seriously considering what having someone in his head reading his mind would be like. "I was trying to judge the boy's character at first glance," Inoichi said as if it were obvious. "If he had backed up or flinched or started sweating, then I would have had to consider the boy of lower caliber character and he would have had to work harder to earn my respect. Thanks to you, you messed it all up and now we'll never know," he said to his daughter who sweat dropped at her father. He ignored her and walked from behind the counter up to Naruto. "It's good to meet you Naruto, I've heard a bit about you recently." "Really?" Naruto said happily, the way he said that sounded promising. He wasn't used to people saying that they'd heard of him sounding positive about it, but Inoichi hadn't glared at him yet, or anything really. He half expected the man to kick him out when he first saw him, and after that point he started feeling more at ease about things. "Yeah," Inoichi said with a toothy grin, "for instance, more muscle than brain, sticky fingers, junior smokestack dash." Naruto's face fell to one of a deadpan with each title he had apparently been given that Inukai recited. His vision slowly turned to Ino who was smiling apologetically and actually mouthed the word sorry to him, dash, and then there's dash dot. "Daddy, Naruto gets it," Ino finally said with her face in her hands, just wanting it to end. Maybe if she was lucky Naruto would only stop talking to her for a week until she could prove she was sorry for coming up with all of those fake aliases for him. She was so getting Inoichi back for that one whenever she got the chance. Why? There were still so many more, they got better. Inoichi chuckled back at her before looking over at Naruto who had the proverbial rain cloud over his head at the moment. "It's okay Naruto, she had way more names for you." That seemed to make the rain pour down harder so to speak as Inoichi continued to talk, "You're lucky like that. Shikamaru only has one, so does Asuma, and I don't think that Sasuke kid has any." Ino had to avert her eyes from Naruto as he gave her the teary puppy dog look. Damn, he did that really well. Giant, quivering, emotional blue eyes were super effective. Inoichi finally noticed that Naruto wasn't taking these revelations very well and he laughed as he patted the boy on the back. "Oh, I didn't explain. That's how Ino shows that she actually gives a damn about you kid. The more names she uses when she talks about you means that she actually thinks about you enough to pull up something about you to name you with. Like I said, they get better." That actually prompted him to stop acting down in the dumps, as if someone had flipped a switch. With a blink his eyes turned back to normal and he looked up at the towering adult. "They get better? Like what?" Ino's eyes widened and she looked up at her father desperately. Daddy, no, don't you dash dot. Inoichi grinned and grabbed Naruto's shoulder. Well, there are a few, but my favorite one is when she calls you her long-lost big brother. Laughs. I think that one's rather cute, and I can actually see it a little bit. He turned back when he heard something bang against the counter and saw Ino with her head down. Alright Ino, I'm done picking on both of you now. Ino let out a huff and blew her bang out of her face before turning her attention to Naruto. Sorry about that. Anyway, I don't know where Asuma-sensei lives or where he hangs out. Sorry. Naruto nodded with a frown on his face, and stopped talking about Nami no Kuni. It happened, we're not dead, you're stronger than the rest of us. Don't make me go into your head and switch your wiring around until you get over this. I'm over it, I'm over it. Naruto exclaimed, knowing enough of Ino's family jutsu to not exactly desire having her poke around in his head. Who knew what she would find in there? He definitely didn't. After all, Iruka said his mind was scary. He remembered that. I've still got to do something though. If it's not just because I want to get better, it's because I'm bored. What the hell did he expect me to do for a whole week? He shouted the last part indignantly. Growling to himself, Naruto turned and headed towards the door to the shop. I'll see you later, Ino. Maybe Shikamaru knows where he is. Ino waved to Naruto as he left. Bye Naruto. As Naruto disappeared from the doorway of the shop and headed off towards wherever he planned on heading to next. She then turned to Inoichi with a dry look on her face. Did you have to tell him the long-lost big brother thing, Daddy? That was a slip. Inoichi laughed as he started returning to the back. Yeah, a slip. Just like the other slip that you called him, or did you want me to tell him about that instead? He said, getting Ino to give him a wide-eyed look. I could go find him right now and tell him the other thing you called him, he might like that one. You tell him that and I swear to call me Daddy I'll dash. Ino threatened, prepared to fight a losing battle against her old man if he was even slightly sincere with his previous suggestion. Inoichi just waved her off as he vanished from the front area of the store. I thought it was just a slip. He taunted, I like that boy more than the Sasuke kid you've been talking about for the last 5 years anyway. Ino didn't bother chasing him back there as someone still had to watch the front and her shift wasn't over yet. She simply seethed in the front, gritting her own teeth to keep from yelling, I'm going to make him teach me how to erase memories and then I'm going to rip that one out of his head, damn it. She sighed and calmed herself down as she pulled a scroll from under the counter and blew the dust off of it. Why was this one so far back in the storage room? It seems like something useful to me. She said to herself as she started to read it mostly out of boredom. Poisons, toxins, and venoms, the equalizers of the ninja arts. Later, Nara clan compound. Where the fuck is Shikamaru's house? Naruto thought to himself as he rushed through the grounds owned by the Nara clan. He really didn't know where he was going, he just knew the general area of the village. He hadn't had any friends before being on this team, let alone friends that lived deep within specialized areas of property like clan grounds, so he only knew where to begin looking for where people lived. He had been running through the forests that were abundant on the grounds and so far all he had seen were the wrong houses and tons of deer. Letting out another burst of his sonar jutsu to see if there was a person around to ask where he was, he turned around abruptly, stopping his movement through the forest. And who the hell keeps following me? He yelled, waving his arms spastically. Come out already, damn it. If you can help me out then come on, and if you're trying to kill me, then still come out, let's get this over with, I've got stuff to do today. Nothing sounded out in the forest except the natural sounds that would have been there regardless. Naruto bared his teeth. Shakura Hankyuti to no Jutsu, Chakra Echolocation Jutsu. With his next pulse he noticed the person that had been hanging back and following him had left the area again. Seriously, who is that? He didn't know who the person was by their signature, but every so often he'd catch the person shadowing him when he tried to use his jutsu. It irked him before, but it was starting to unnerve him now, especially after the last time he had been shadowed by someone. It led to his battle with Haku that by all rights should have ended with his team's deaths. All he could do now was continue on through the Nara clan grounds. Hopefully he would run into someone that could help him soon. Didn't any of these people get up and go outside, or were they all just as lazy as Shikamaru? What, was it genetic or something? The forest started thinning out and Naruto saw a smattering of clan houses and prayed in relief. He had wasted upwards of 2 hours looking for Asuma by way of both Ino and Shikamaru, whom he had yet to find and even ask. He then cursed when he began looking at the addresses on the house. Come on already. Cut me a break. Naruto wanted to yell again, but in a mellow place like the Nara clan area it seemed wrong. The reason for his disgruntled attitude this time was because every house had the address and the name Nara, and he didn't know Shikamaru's personal address. In his defense, however, he was sure that none of his team knew where he lived either, so as far as he was concerned, when he found Shikamaru he would have a leg up on him in that department. As he started wandering around, a grin came to his face as he finally found who he was looking for, sitting in the front of a house with an older man that looked like him, only he had 2 scars on the right side of his face, a goatee, a mesh shirt under a flak jacket, and over that he had on a deerskin coat and handguards. The two were playing some kind of board game that Naruto had never bothered learning how to get good at. Shogi just wasn't for him. Shikamaru, Naruto said in relief as he ran up to them, do you know how hard it was to find you? Why were you even looking for me in the first place? Shikamaru asked him as he stared down at his pieces while his dad waited for his next move. Suddenly Shikamaru's eyes drifted up towards Naruto and narrowed. Did Asuma cut our break short? He said, sounding somewhat miffed at the prospect. Naruto shook his head. That's the thing, I don't know where Asuma-sensei is. I was hoping that you would, but seeing as how you don't know where I live, he said, trailing off. Shikamaru sighed and looked back down at the board, finally moving a piece. You live on the south side of Konoha, edge of the residential and business districts, Monument View Apartments, 3rd floor, apartment number 3. Why do you know that? Naruto asked him incredulously. Nobody knows that. Asuma knows that. Shikamaru responded as he waited on his dad to make a move. I know it too, and so does Ino. We know where you live because of that day you didn't show up because your clones put you into a coma or something. We went to see what the problem was. You don't remember it because you weren't even awake when it happened. Naruto's shoulders dropped. Ah man. I suck. I don't even know where Ino or Asuma-sensei lives and I just now found where you live. Meh. He grumbled. So do you know where Asuma-sensei is? Please say yes, I've been looking around for more than 2 hours. Shikamaru sighed as his dad made a move, prompting him to think about changing up his strategy. Having Naruto ask him a question was distracting him from his game with his dad. He wasn't going to lose this one, damn it. Answer your friend Shikamaru. Shikamaru's dad Shikaku said lazily. Yeah, troublesome old man. The younger Nara boy said before stopping to think about it. If I had to look for him, and I never have, I would check with Kurenai. If you can find her you can probably find him. Damn it. Naruto said, pulling his goggles off of his head to scratch his forehead. This sucks. I just want to ask one question. Is that so much to ask? Shikamaru moved another piece. Apparently it is. Find Kurenai, that's your best shot. Naruto frowned but nodded as he still held his goggles in his hands. Fine. I'll see you later, Shikamaru. He said as he disappeared in a puff of smoke. Shikaku watched Naruto's smoke dissipate quickly before he addressed his son. He can do Shunshin. Shikamaru nodded, still focusing on the game and not on something he had already known about for the better part of the last month. Yeah. Now stop trying to distract me. Shikaku yawned. Just accept that you lose already so that I can take a nap, and go train. Shikamaru scoffed. You're supposed to be training me, old man. I told you about our last mission. I will. Shikaku said as if he were trying to placate his son. I will when you beat me at this. Shikamaru's eyes moved from the board towards Shikaku's as they just stared at each other for over a minute. You're really going to make me get up and tell Mom, aren't you? You wouldn't. Shikaku said, still relatively comfortable at this point. You're bluffing. I would. Shikamaru fired back immediately, his face not changing to illustrate his point. Who do you think she'd be upset at? Her son for wanting to get in some training with his dad, or her lazy-ass husband that wouldn't bother training with his son when he didn't have anything better to do? Shikaku gave his son a blank stare before moving one more piece on the board. Fine, check. Now let's go already. I think your mother can sense when we talk about her, you troublesome brat. Shikamaru looked hard at the board to see if there was another move he could make before slumping back in his chair. Ugh, checkmate then. Both of them stood up slowly and headed towards the forested backyard to begin. How the hell did you do that? My entire strategy was to wear me down with stonewall defense and let me beat myself. Shikaku finished for him. I know. That was your problem. That was too conservative, you never tried to attack. I left my gold general and rook open for you twice to see what you would do, no trap involved, just to see if you'd attack when given the chance and you didn't. Sometimes it pays to be a little reckless. Shikamaru. With Naruto. Naruto eventually came to a stop on a rooftop with a twitching eye. Wait, what am I doing? Why should I be running all over the village 5 times over just for a hint or a clue of where Asuma-sensei is? I've got unlimited help. He quickly formed 24 Kage Bunshin, go look for Asuma-sensei, or someone who would know where he is like that Kurenai lady. One of the clones spoke up, where are you going? The original Naruto sighed with a dejected look on his face, where else do I go when I know I need to train but don't have anything to train on? He asked rhetorically as his clones already knew the answer to that question, showing that they knew by cringing. Yeah, I think I should go to the library to see if I get lucky. All of his clones let out low hissing noises at the prospect of going to the library. I know, be happy that I'm not making any of you go. I'll make other clones for that to help me look for something later. Now get going. The clones saluted and took off in their search for Asuma while Naruto made his way towards Konoha Archive Library to see if there was anything worth digging up like the gold mine he had found in his Taijutsu Theory scroll. He doubted it, since his clones had scoured the place with Shiho, someone who actually knew what to look for, once already over the period of an entire week and pulled up nothing. Yeah, I'm not going to the library. He thought to himself as he dropped back down on the street and began walking. If I want to read a book I'll just go to Shiho-chan's house and ask if I can get anything from her. She has enough books in her house for it to be a library by itself. Gah, why is having time off so irksome? Naruto said to himself as he dropped back down onto the street. Ino's working, Shikamaru's being Shikamaru, I can't find Asuma-sensei, and I don't have anything to do today. He blinked after subconsciously letting off a pulse of his sonar jutsu before twisting his face rather angrily. And come out or stop following me already, damn. I can sense you, I just don't know who you are. He yelled into the air, confusing all of the villagers. Letting off another wave of it, he shook his head at the signature vanishing again from his radar. Taking his headband off to scratch his forehead momentarily, he stared at it before pulling his goggles up in their place over his forehead. As he continued walking through the village, he loosened his headband so that it took on the shape of a bandana that he tied back around his neck. With nothing to do but play the waiting game, Naruto decided to just walk about the village. Maybe something would find him and fall right into his lap. After a while of walking through the business district on the way home to grab something to eat for the late afternoon, Naruto heard someone call out to him, Naruto. He stopped in his tracks and looked around but didn't see anyone in the streets trying to speak to him. Shrugging, he was about to go on his way again when he heard the voice again, in here, look harder. He turned around again as the voice started to guide him. That's it, keep walking that way. 10 more steps and then turn right. He did as instructed and wound up looking inside of a doorway at Tenten, standing inside of a shop, stocking packs of shuriken. How are you? Long time no see, Naruto-chan. And just like that, his good mood at finding someone to hang out with for a bit was gone. Do you have to call me that? Am I your senior in age and rank? Tenten asked him in turn, a grin on her face. So what's up? She asked him, finishing her task that Naruto walked in on her performing. Not much. Naruto replied flippantly, I'm supposed to be looking for my sensei, but I don't know how to find him, so right now I've got nothing to do. What are you doing stocking stuff? Tenten gestured around the store. I work here sometimes. Why else do you think I can afford so many weapons on a genin's regular salary? I'm not a part of any clan that has a storehouse full of them. By now you should know we don't make that much money. True. Naruto admitted. With the missions they did, he only had enough money really for his necessities and not much for anything leisurely. Hey, since he was there he might as well have a look around and restock on his stuff. As much as he didn't want to spend all of that money on new stuff, he had to eventually. He used a lot of weapons in Nami no Kuni, do you mind if I have a look around? Tenten shook her head, not at all. Why would I? You want me to help you out? Naruto smiled slightly, yeah, if you're not busy. I need a new set of kunai, and a few shuriken to restock with. Tenten nodded and began leading him around. That sounds easy enough. Come with me, I'll get you all set up. After being pelted with pinpoint accuracy by the bun-haired girl's weapon prowess once before, Naruto trusted her knowledge on armaments enough to let her get his gear together. As she grabbed the equipment they had gone around to collect, she tried making small talk. So anything happened lately on those ever so exciting D-rank missions? She teased. Naruto's eye twitched. That's right, she didn't tell him that he'd be doing odd jobs instead of actual ninja stuff when he had clearly talked to her about it before he ever started doing them. Thus when Naruto put a vindictive smirk on his face he didn't feel too bad about it. Oh, I wouldn't know. We did like 10 and I got to do a C rank. That got her attention, and Naruto decided to go in for the kill, and before we even got back from it we were given an A rank mission to reinforce another team. We had to fight missing ninja and help a country free itself and everything. And Tenten's reaction didn't disappoint. She simply stared at him blankly as if trying to process what he was saying. How dash? Why dash? What? Yeah. Naruto said, taking the kunai and shuriken off of her hands for her. Oh, didn't you get an A rank mission by now? Not in the first 2 months. Tenten yelled at him, waving her arms. That's so not fair. What the hell? She actually pouted at Naruto getting a mission like that so soon after getting started. It totally wasn't fair to her, and Naruto, seeing her pout for the first time ever, started laughing at it. Are you going to tell me about it or are you just going to keep laughing? Naruto stopped laughing enough to speak. Can I do both? He was enjoying actually getting to one-up someone for once. Tenten shook her head as Naruto told her about the mission, and before long they wound up at the checkout counter. So how much is it? He said, already dreading the total due to the last few times he had gone to buy himself weapons. Tenten added everything up, confused at the way Naruto spoke, all dejected over paying. Cheap aren't we, Naruto? It's 910 ryo for everything. You didn't get that much. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Normally I have to pay twice that. Man, this store has good deals. He thought to himself, I'm definitely coming here from now on. He grinned at Tenten and eagerly fished the money out of his wallet. Great. I've still got so much money left over. Tenten laughed slightly at his reaction to the price. Well, do you want to keep looking around for something else? Naruto looked around before turning back to her and nodding. All right then. How much money do you feel like spending? Naruto looked through everything he had left in his wallet and answered, I think I can spend another 2,000 after buying this stuff, and then I have to save the rest. Rent, food, and savings, you know. 2,000 ryo. Tenten said to herself as she started leading Naruto back through the store to find him something else. That's pretty frugal, but I think we have something right up your alley. Naruto looked around in the specialized weapons section as Tenten led him through it. His eyes ran across all kinds of weapons, swords like Inodoki, Chokyuto, katana, even broadswords like claymores and the like. He stopped there, but when he looked at Tenten she gave him a small smile and shook her head before leading him on further. Looking at the price tags he saw that they were out of his price range anyway. They passed all kinds of things, even maces, and Kyuzarigama. He was kind of glad Tenten didn't stop him there. With a blade at the end of a long chain he probably would have ended up cutting his own head off sooner or later with that thing. She eventually brought them to a stop in a section of short blades as she started perusing through them, picking something up and putting it behind her back. Naruto cocked his head in confusion until Tenten presented him a sheathed weapon. One of these would normally be around 720 ryo, but this one is made of special metal that can allow chakra to flow through it. All kinds of higher level ninja can use weapons like that in cool ways. I haven't gotten exactly how they do it down yet. Naruto took the weapon from her into his own hands and looked at it. It was in a black sheath with a plain black handle that had no guard. Naruto pulled the weapon from the sheath and held a 26-inch blade in his hands. As it went further to the top, it curved forward and then directly back, leaving the flat of the blade straight. Tenten had given him a machete. It's 1,650 ryo because of the metal it's made of, and I think it suits you better than a regular sword would. You look like the kind of person that would appreciate functionality over having to learn too much technique. Tenten said as she walked back towards the checkout counter. If you want it, I'm sure it would be a cool weapon for a genin to have. It's pretty easy to use and they're really versatile. The sheath even has a sharpening stone in it, so when you put the weapon up it sharpens itself. For years when Naruto thought of himself with a weapon, he always saw himself with huge shuriken or a wicked-looking kunai or a katana, but now holding the machete in his hands he had to say, his daydreams were overrated. He marched up to the counter and put it up there with his other things. I'll take it, he said, more than happy with it. It was light and it looked very sharp and pretty easy to use, just like she said. Tenten nodded and finished adding everything up. Okay, that'll be 2,560 Ryo Naruto. Naruto quickly forked over the necessary funds and Tenten placed a scroll and some strange papers with a little bit of ink on the counter, confusing him and prompting her to explain. We got a shipment of sealing supplies, so as a promotional thing we're giving away samples of ink and papers to start with to people that spend over 2,000 Ryo in here. Maybe if we end up getting some to someone that enjoys it a bit, we can sell more of the stuff quicker. I tossed in a sealing scroll too, like what I had for my weapons, it's just that mine is special. Naruto grinned at Tenten as she placed all of his stuff in a bag to take out. This was great. Not only did he get his kunai and shuriken for under half price, he wound up getting a special weapon and some sealing stuff too. He remembered Tenten putting all of that stuff away in one scroll instead of lugging them all around and figured he had to get him some of that too. Thanks a lot, Tenten. Man, this is great. Before he made it to the door he stopped and turned to her. When do I get my rematch? Has it been 5 months yet? She asked him with a bored look on her face and a small smirk. It's been 2, maybe 3, damn it. Naruto said before walking out of the store into the street, getting Tenten to laugh a little. I'll see you later, Tenten. Later, Naruto-chan. She said to mess with him one last time, not being let down when she heard him curse from wherever she was down the street. That was a pretty interesting run-in. Tenten said to herself as she went back to waiting out the rest of her shift. Naruto had dropped his stuff off at home before heading back out. His clones had systematically dispelled over time, having found no sign of Asuma and having used all of the chakra he gave them, letting out pulses of the sonar jutsu over time. Grumbling to himself for what seemed like the 1000th time that day, he patted himself down and pulled a cigarette from his pocket as well as a lighter and lit himself a smoke. Where is Asuma-sensei? Is he ducking debt collectors today or something? Naruto then laughed to himself slightly as he blew out a cloud. Nah, Asuma-sensei's a jonin, the best of the best. There's no way a ninja that good would do something like that. Elsewhere in Hai no Kuni. Achoo. A woman with blonde hair and pigtails sneezed as she sat on the floor of a gambling den. She rubbed her nose and growled before slamming money on the ground. I'm upping my bet, now my wager is on Han. The dealer in front of her shrugged and lifted the bamboo cup on the ground. Sorry, the dice are Joe. You lose again, ma'am. The woman's eye twitched. Fuck. Naruto absently realized as he kept walking through the village that he was getting too used to smoking these things. He wasn't even coughing a bit anymore. In his defense, after the day he was having so far, failing miserably to find his own sensei just to ask him a question, he earned that damn thing. Where the fuck is Asuma? He reiterated once more for the benefit of his own sanity at this point. It was sunset at this point and Naruto was pretty much ready to call it a day and grab some dinner at Ichikaru Ramen. He had looked as hard as he could and failed, no shame in that. Did someone just call out my name? Naruto turned around and saw Asuma walking towards him with Kurenai. However, both Naruto and Asuma had something of a symbiotic thought the exact instant that Asuma saw the little white stick in Naruto's mouth and Naruto saw Kurenai. Luckily Naruto was able to think fast, and by thinking fast he swallowed the cigarette whole without a second thought. Asuma had to hide his own surprise at seeing his shortest student pull that one off. That was gross and extremely manly. I'm a good role model, he decided at that very moment. As the two jonin got close, Kurenai wrinkled her nose. Why do I smell cigarettes? She asked as Naruto had on his best possible poker face, ignoring the fact that he had just swallowed a goddamn lit cigarette. Naruto stared at the scary jonin lady with wide eyes. Because you've been hanging out with Asuma-sensei, he said as if that were the exact reason why, and from the look on her face she was about to buy it, thus it was time to change the subject. Never mind that. He turned to his sensei, "Where the hell have you been all day? I've been looking all over the village for you." He started listing things on his fingers. "I asked Ino and Shikamaru, I ran my own errands and still kept looking for you, I had clones all over the place, I've been getting stalked all freaking day by someone I don't know and haven't seen just looking for you. What do you have to say for yourself?" Kurenai looked at him strangely. "You were stalked?" she said unbelievably. Naruto pointed directly at her. "Don't change the subject, Kurenai-sensei, where have you two been?" Asuma and Kurenai looked at each other before looking back at the rightly pissed off Genin. Don't worry about where I've been all day," he said to Naruto, hoping things didn't go much further than that, as did Kurenai. "No," Naruto said, shaking his head. No. Hell no. This makes no sense at all. It doesn't matter that I don't know where you live or what you do in your free time or anything. I have been out and looking all over the place for both of you and didn't find a single thing. What the fuck have you been doing all day that made you both so damn hard to find? It's like you were ducking every single form of life." "I kind of was, kid, shut up now," Asuma said in his mind. A day with Kurenai like the one he had really didn't need to slip down to his cute little genin students. Because if Naruto knew, then Ino would know, and if Ino knew, then Inoichi would know, and if Inoichi knew, then Anko would know, and then they were both screwed because then everyone would know. And nobody was supposed to know. "Well, I'm here now, so don't worry about it anymore. What do you want?" Naruto let off a sigh. "Alright, here goes. Asuma-sensei, can you teach me something new?" Asuma shrugged. "Alright," he said, easily and with no hesitance whatsoever. However, Naruto was still stuck in explanation mode as to why he needed the help, because right now I'm as good as I'm going to get at using all of my other dash. "Wait, you said okay? That easily?" "Yeah," Asuma said, scratching his head. "I told you that I'm pretty much the only one that can help you out with, well, anything. You don't have a clan to help you out or any shinobi relatives, or relatives period. If I didn't help you out with learning new things, then who in the world would?" He saw Naruto's face light up and that brought a smile to his own face. "So I'll drop by your place sometime tomorrow if that's alright. Since you came to me for help, I'll help you and let Ino and Shikamaru alone for the rest of the week. Maybe we can start you on something." "Yada." Naruto jumped into the air excitedly. "That's so great. I can't wait. Thanks, Asuma-sensei." With that, Naruto made a ram seal and used Shunshin to vacate the scene. Kurenai blinked at the fading smoke and pointed at where Naruto used to be standing. "Did he just dash?" "Yep," Asuma said, alluding to nothing else. Kurenai raised an eyebrow. "It's only been dash dot." "I know." Asuma cut her off as he got them to move along again to whatever destination they had been heading to before they came across Naruto. "What can I say? The kid's gold, pure gold. He's like a raw lump of clay that's just steadily shaping up. He's got some moves you'd never think a genin could pull already." Kurenai nodded. Asuma had been the one to say that Naruto could have been good way before the teams were even finalized. "So what about it? Does he know after you told me what happened on your last mission?" Asuma frowned at that. "I already talked to Dad about it. He still doesn't want me telling him yet. He wants to wait for someone that could explain it better than I could to show up." He let out a sigh and rubbed his beard. "I still think it's a bad idea to keep it from him. Dad means well, but how can he keep on going without knowing what's in him?" Kurenai took a moment to think about that. According to Asuma, Naruto wasn't even aware of any weird powers coming from him during his fight with Haku. He was so angry. He didn't attack Asuma or turn into a machine of destruction the way everyone around him always figured he would, hence why most every adult in Konoha treaded lightly around the good-natured, bright personality boy. "There's nothing you can do about it though, Asuma," Kurenai reasoned with him. "It's still a law that none of us can tell him about it. We could even get in trouble about talking about it out loud like this without really saying anything. Just trust in Hokage-sama's judgment for now and go with it. He's been doing fine without knowing what's in him. It can wait a little longer." "I still don't like it," Asuma said, fishing a cigarette out of his vest pocket. Kurenai didn't even bother admonishing him for smoking around her, seeing that he was really sort of upset about things at the moment. It's like putting Naruto in a minefield and telling him to run laps. There's so many things that can go wrong. Kurenai could see that he was going to be overthinking this for the rest of the day and then some. She only had one more thing left to try to get Asuma out of his slump, or else she might as well have left him alone to think right then and there. So, are we going back to your apartment or mine? As she noticed him freeze up and look at her blankly, she knew that had worked towards snapping him out of it. The next day, Team 10 training ground. Naruto still had his headband in the form of a bandana around his neck and his goggles set squarely on his forehead as he looked at his sensei, who was grinning widely. Asuma-sensei, why are you in such a good mood? Studly reasons, kid. Asuma said cryptically as he walked over to Naruto, fishing something out of his pocket. Okay brat, you can walk on water like a pro at this point, and from you showing off with Shunshin yesterday I guess you've got that down. So now we're going to get you jump started on something advanced. It might take you a while to get it though, even with your clones. He pulled out a slip of paper and put it into his hand. Channel chakra into that. Naruto looked at his sensei and then at the paper in his hand before doing as he was asked. The paper split in half, surprising him. What happened? Did I use too much? Asuma had a look of noticeable surprise on his face. No, that was just fine. Exactly what was supposed to happen. A smirk came to his face. It looks like as a sensei I picked right going for you again. Naruto, you have an elemental chakra nature of the wind variety just like me. Lucky you. So? Naruto said, not necessarily getting what the big deal was at the moment. What does that mean? Asuma chuckled and put a hand around Naruto's shoulder as he led him along. I'm glad you asked. Let me explain to you, you're really going to like what I have to say. I can almost promise you that. How to train your genin, tip 9. Sleep is for the weak, not. You want your genin to work hard, but there's a point when training hard turns into overtraining, and there are some problems with that. Overtraining can result in injuries, and over time these injuries can accumulate and wind up shortening your genin's overall career, unless you've got some kind of weird genetic disposition to healing yourself up as good as new like nothing happened, The same thing goes for missions as well. There is only so much of the time that you can force your squad to keep giving 100% before their performance begins to suffer for it. You can't always go full blast. Have light days where you don't train as hard, or even give them days off, especially after difficult missions. If your team is well rested, then that just makes them all the more better in the long run. If you have an overachiever, well, you tie him/her up and make them rest. Who cares if it's not his/her choice? What is this, a democracy? It's for their own good. In the end, if you don't let or make them rest, then eventually their best just won't be as good as it would have been otherwise, and that could prove to be fatal, both to the mission you wind up on, or to their very lives. Shiho. Chapter 13, 44 Ways to Kill You with a Pimento. The week of Team 10's sensei prescribed downtime had come to an end, and before long they were right back to work, as all three of the young genin class shinobi had incentive for wanting to get stronger. For wanting to provide more than a mere support role to the team. Shikamaru, so that he could find himself capable of going through with his own plans instead of having to use his teammates as living chess pieces, as well as bettering his strategies that his father showed him he was still lacking somewhat in. And last but not least Naruto, who believed that he wasn't strong enough to still be accepting of his role as the team's direct conflict fighter and overall self-professed guardian of sorts. But with him, things were coming along smoothly, especially after the little boon bestowed upon him by Asuma during their down week. Flashback, 3 weeks ago, 4 days into Team 10's break. Naruto sat cross-legged on the ground in front of Asuma under the shade of the single tree in their team training grounds, clearing against a rock. The man himself was leaning against the tree trunk itself with a very satisfied smile on his face. It's really a good thing for you that I'm your sensei. I think I'm the only other wind user in Konoha other than you now. Naruto nodded and stayed silent for the time being. He was aware of elements at the very least. Like for instance, he knew that Sasuke shot big-ass fireballs around at his leisure, something that Naruto actually wished he could do. Why couldn't he have been fire-natured? That seemed so much cooler than wind. I mean, who didn't like fireballs and explosions? And when he set the explosion, he would just turn around and walk away, because after all, everyone knew that cool guys don't look at explosions. He tried practicing his not looking at explosions cool guy gestures when he first joined, but Asuma didn't want him using explosive tags like that, and he didn't want him turning the training ground into a cratered mess. Asuma gave Naruto a deadpan look as he could see Naruto had stopped paying attention and had a glazed look on his face with a content smirk. "You were thinking of the cool guys don't look at explosions thing again, weren't you?" Asuma said, getting Naruto to snap out of his daydream. "It's all over your face. And now you have that look of, why didn't I get fire or something so that I could make explosions like Sasuke?" Naruto just chuckled sheepishly and rubbed the back of his neck. "No. So come on and tell me already, what's so great about wind and what can I do with it?" Asuma sighed. Having to defend his best element to this kid wasn't how he anticipated his training to go. "Alright, wind in my opinion is the best element for you out of them all. Fire is too wild for someone like you, lightning is too precise, water is too loose and flowing, and earth is too straightforward and set. With wind it's the best for the way that you fight, close to mid-range." "How?" Naruto asked him skeptically. "Won't wind just blow stuff away from me? That's cool and all I guess, but it won't really beat anyone. I need to be close for my taijutsu to work and everything." Asuma shook his head. "That's a misconception. While a lot of wind ninjutsu blow things around, there are more of them suited towards cutting things." He pointed to a nearby tree and pulled out one of his trench knives. "You see that tree?" Naruto nodded and Asuma threw it. As the weapon stuck itself into the tree, Naruto waited for something to happen but it never did. "That's it," he said, turning back to Asuma. "If I knew how to throw that thing I could have done that." Asuma pulled out his other trench knife. "Fair enough, okay, you see this one?" Naruto again nodded, but with less enthusiasm this time. "Move." Naruto raised an eyebrow but got up and moved towards Asuma, who threw the trench knife against the rock that Naruto had been standing by. The weapon split right through the stone, kicking up dust from the destroyed stone. Naruto pulled his goggles down over his eyes and pulled his headband in the style of a bandana up over his mouth and nose until the dust cleared. "That was awesome. Teach me how to do that." "Can't yet," Asuma said. "Learning how to manipulate the wind chakra you have takes work. You can't even generate your chakra the way it's supposed to be for that to even work," he told Naruto as he walked over and picked his trench knives up. So he couldn't learn how to cut through a rock like butter right off the bat. Okay, he could deal with that for the moment. Walk before you run after all. So if I'm not going to be doing that Naruto said, pointing at the destroyed rock, then what am I going to be doing? Asuma turned his head up. "Get a leaf." Naruto shrugged and ran up the trunk of the tree they were under to retrieve a leaf as instructed before jumping down again. "Now split it in half." Asuma fought the urge to facepalm when Naruto just ripped the leaf in two. "Okay, that was my fault. I meant with your chakra." Naruto tilted his head hard to the right. "Okay, how do I do that?" Another leaf fell to the ground nearby and Asuma picked it up, holding it out for Naruto to see. "For you, take your chakra and mold it into a cutting form. Just will your chakra to cut through the leaf. Because you've got the wind element, that's how it will work for you." He saw Naruto nod. "Now it won't be as easy as it sounds, but you have your Kage Bunshin, so I believe you'll be able to cut the time that you'd normally need to do it down by a large amount." "Alright," Naruto said before rubbing his hands together and forming the cross seal. "Let's do this, Tajuryokage-. Hey." Asuma cut Naruto off from forming his clones with a frown on his face. "What did I tell you 5 days ago?" he asked Naruto in a voice that sounded almost like he was scolding. "Nothing," Naruto replied. "All you told us to do all week long was to take the week off and rest." "Exactly," Asuma said with his arms crossed over his chest. "That wasn't just limited to doing missions and training exercises I meant to give you, that was also meant to mean that you aren't supposed to train at all." "What?" Naruto couldn't believe that. "I can't train at all?" "Yep," Asuma said, "but it for more than just making sure you get your rest. When we start training again, I'm going to give each of you solo tests to see where you've grown as individuals, since I already gave you your team test before we took our C-rank mission." He saw Naruto grumble about the order he was given. "I didn't say you can't do anything, I just said no physical training. Let your body rest for a while. All you do is kill your body when you train, you're only human, kid." Naruto still didn't like it, even if it was just for the rest of the week. "Well, what am I supposed to do for the rest of the time off then? I don't know, I can't tell you what to do for the rest of the time. The older man said, before contributing a thought, why not take up a book or something? He noticed Naruto glaring at him. What? What's wrong with that? Naruto kept up his heated look at the Jonin. You were trying to be funny just now, weren't you? End flashback. And for the last few weeks, in the time that he and his team hadn't been working on their missions or going with exercises that Asuma had given them to improve as a team, Naruto had been doing his best to split a leaf when they were given time to train on their own things, which was what he had been doing at the moment. Yep, him and about 30 clones, all with leaves in their hands. Naruto and all of his replications were focusing hard on the leaves in their hands. The one thing Naruto could say after a few weeks of on and off working on his elemental manipulation training was that it was a lot of standing around and concentrating, but if doing this would lead him to picking up a new move or two, he would do it. Not everything could be exciting and over-the-top awesome all of the time. With a grunt of exertion, Naruto stopped generating chakra and heaved out a few heavy breaths, looking over to where he saw the rest of his team sitting about. Naruto narrowed his eyes and walked over, getting a small chuckle out of Asuma. That's another reason why I felt that your elemental training would go faster than most. Because first learning how to use your element takes a lot of chakra, something you have no shortage of most of the time. He never looked up at Naruto as he had his eyes on a shogi board sitting between him and Shikamaru. Not this stupid game again. Naruto thought to himself. Okay, so he was kind of biased since he couldn't really play it. He understood the rules, but shogi just wasn't the game for him. It took too much patience and he was too impulsive. Most of the time when he would play Asuma or Shikamaru, he would walk right into their traps that they had been setting up for 10 turns while he had been going around the board trying to pick off officer pieces. He could beat Ino more often than not, however, he had a habit of pulling off some surprising gambits that actually worked against someone on his own level. What are all of you doing? Kicking Asuma's ass. Shikamaru replied as dryly as ever as he moved another piece, putting a frown on Asuma's face. Your turn. Asuma scratched his beard as he looked over his pieces. How in the hell have I not beaten you once yet? Naruto stopped paying attention to them and looked over at Ino, who was laying out on the ground as if she were sleeping. Great, yeah. I didn't know, free training day to me meant chill out day for everyone else. He said as he walked over to Ino and crouched down in front of her, waving his hand in front of her face and getting no reaction. Ino. Ino, wake up. Ino is awake, Naruto. Asuma said, scowling over how Shikamaru was working him into a corner on the shogi board. She actually is training right now. Naruto blinked before opening his mouth in understanding. Oh, her clan jutsu. But where did she go? There's nothing around here. Just when he said that, a bird landed on him and pecked at the top of his head 3 times. Oi. He almost managed to swat the bird, but it managed to fly away first. After a moment, once the bird landed in the tree that marked the center of their training ground, Ino's body then began to stir on the ground. Ugh, you're so lucky that you didn't hit me while I was in that bird, Naruto. Naruto looked at her as she sat up, rubbing her eyes. You can hit birds with that move? Ino nodded. Well, it didn't know I was coming, it's not that big of a deal. She then noticed that Naruto had stopped training and popped up to her feet quickly. Oh, there's something that I've always wanted to try, Naruto, and I need your help. Make a Kage Bunshin. Naruto quickly did as she asked of him, and in a matter of seconds a second Naruto was standing right next to the original. So what's up? What did you need? She made the hand seal for Shintenshin no Jutsu. I wanted to see if I could take control of a clone, but you're the only person I know that makes tons of them the way that you do. You Kage Bunshin and most other solid ones have consciousnesses, that's why they can follow orders. I just want to see if this would work. Naruto nodded and moved away from his clone. Shintenshin no Jutsu, Mind-Body Switch Jutsu. Naruto's clone's head snapped back in an alert motion before slumping down, while Ino's body fell back down to the ground in a heap. Even Asuma and Shikamaru stopped what they were doing to watch. Asuma was only thankful that Ino hadn't tried to take the real Naruto's body, but what would happen in a clone body? Ino inside of the Kage Bunshin started looking at herself in Naruto's form, flexing the fingers and testing out the basic motor skills. Wow, Naruto's body is really rigid and stiff. Naruto gave her a dry look as she continued to go through the motions in his clone's body. Well, what did you expect, Ino? You're a girl, you're way lighter than me, and all of that other stuff. Yeah, Yeah, I know. She said as she kept looking at her hands, but I can just feel how much stronger your body is than mine, it's kind of cool. I feel like I can lift anything right now. Asuma chimed in, putting his game with Shikamaru on hold for the moment. I really wouldn't do that though, Ino. Naruto's clones are pretty fragile, too much strain on one and they'll pop. Then what will happen to your mind? She looked over at Asuma and blinked. Well, it depends on what happens to the clone. If I just get punched or something, then I'll go right back into my body, only my body will take the damage from the punch. If I get stabbed or burned or whatever, then that will happen to my real body too. That made Naruto pale slightly. His clones took obscene amounts of punishment of the fatal variety. They were his buffers, and they were subtly how he knew what to avoid himself when he took to directly fighting his enemies. In Nami no Kuni, Sasuke must have killed like 30 of them at least in rather heinous fashion. Okay. I don't think you should try to use my clones for your jutsu, Ino. Get out of him now. Ino put her hands on her hips, which looked really weird inside of the body of one of Naruto's clones, but did as he asked and released her jutsu, allowing Naruto to dispel the clone. What's the worst thing that could happen? Ino asked once she returned to her own body and sat up to look at Naruto. Naruto just deadpanned at her. Do you pay attention to the things that my clones do? They die harder than any real person does. She gave him a confused look. The way you just talked about my clone getting set on fire like it's not a big deal proves my point. Ino blushed when she realized that everyone had just been playing off the amounts of damage that Naruto's clones took regularly. Everyone on the team had been responsible for killing more than their fair share of them since the squad's inception. Sorry, Naruto. It's okay, I'm just looking out for you. He reassured her before grinning at her. After all, I have to protect my long-lost little sister, don't I? He said in humor, remembering his run-in with Ino's dad. Damn it, that better not stick with him. Ino thought to herself, although she could see that he was teasing her. If she reacted to it angrily or something, then he definitely would have kept calling her that just to mess with her. He was just being good-natured when he said it the way he was at the moment. Still, he'd better not start seeing her like that for real. Checkmate. Shikamaru said to Asuma before yawning. Asuma looked at the board from every angle he could find as he tried to figure out an excuse of some sort. Maybe if I dash. Nope. Shikamaru said with finality, cutting off whatever he was going to say. Yeah, but dash dot. It's over, Asuma. Shikamaru started putting all of the pieces away. Lose with some dignity, why don't you? Asuma finally sighed and conceded that he was still unable to beat Shikamaru at shogi. What was with that kid? He had an answer for everything. It hadn't taken him long to figure out that Shikamaru was a genius, but to put it into action at a young age like this was something else entirely. Fine, dismissed for the day. He said in a defeated manner, we'll be taking another mission tomorrow. Asuma said as he slogged away in a dejected fashion. Ino looked at Asuma slowly leaving the training ground and turned to Shikamaru. I think you broke him. Shikamaru picked up his shogi board and smirked. Well, it was only a matter of time. I've beaten him like 37 times already. He started walking away as well. I'm going to go see if Chuji is done for the day too and see if he wants to hang out for a bit. Do either of you want to go? Ino shrugged. Why not? I was just going to go home, but all I was going to do was start to dip into my extra training, and I could do that anytime tonight for what I was going to do for it. Sure. Naruto shook his head. Nope, sorry, not this time. He said, dispelling his clones and dropping to one knee because of the backlash. He quickly shook it off due to it not being that many and turned to his teammates. I've got to figure out how to cut this stupid leaf, it's killing me. Okay. Ino said, unsure of Naruto's intentions to keep training with something so hard after being dismissed for the day. If that's what you want, we'll see you tomorrow. Naruto smiled at both of them before disappearing in a puff of smoke. Shikamaru just shook his head. Show off. Is he still trying to look cool like on the first week? I thought he knew by now that guys like us aren't supposed to look cool when we do stuff. Ino shook her head, swinging her ponytail back and forth slightly as she followed. A little effort wouldn't kill you. Maybe you could pull it off if you tried. Naruto's starting to anyway. Nah. Shikamaru said, shooting down her comment. For what? It's not going to help me any in the long run. Who cares if anyone thinks I'm cool, it's troublesome. Later, Konohagakure Ninja Academy. Konohamaru stood outside by a large bag of erasers as he clapped two together repeatedly, coughing every now and then. I said I was sorry, Iruka-sensei. That pepper extract fell into your mug by accident. Iruka stood nearby against the wall of the school overseeing his work. And why did you even have it on you in the first place? He asked with a perturbed look on his face. It hadn't even been 6 months since his last prankster had left the academy. He'd be damned if he'd let another one start honing their skills on his watch. No way, not again. Lunch. Konohamaru said desperately, that's a no-go. Iruka nodded and the boy sighed, continuing to clap erasers and cough until a hand pulled the goggles on his forehead down over his face. So you can at least see what you're doing without getting dust in your eyes. Konohamaru looked up and saw someone else with goggles over their eyes and a bandana around their nose and mouth with the village insignia on a metal plate. If I said that this was half of the reason I bought goggles in the first place, would that seem like it was about right, Iruka-sensei? Iruka smirked and chuckled. Well, how am I supposed to know what made you go out and buy those weird things one day? He said as he walked from the wall over to Konohamaru. Long time no see, Naruto. Naruto pulled the cloth down from his face and grinned widely, getting Konohamaru to point up at him suddenly. Whoa. Boss, what's with the new look? It's not really new. Naruto said, pulling his goggles back onto his forehead and tugging at the bandana around his neck. I just thought this would be more useful if I wore it this way. No way, not just that. Konohamaru said abruptly, I haven't seen you in forever and you've got this new look and everything, with the clothes and all of that. Just because you look stronger doesn't mean anything. I'm still going to beat you really soon, you'll see. He waved his little fist at Naruto aggressively. Naruto shook his head in amusement and turned to Iruka. Iruka-sensei, I was just wondering if you could help me really quick. Iruka saw how serious Naruto's face was and he looked down at Konohamaru. Alright Konohamaru, you're done for today since this was your first offense, you can go home. And there'd better not be a next time or else I'll have you clean every last eraser in school. He threatened to the small boy who nodded fervently. Okay. He hurriedly dropped his erasers in his hands and ran towards the edge of the schoolyard before stopping. Hang out with me soon, boss. I've got some people that want to meet you. He said before taking off, not really into the whole staying after school scene. Iruka sighed as he watched his current student leave the grounds. It hasn't even been a year yet and I can already tell he's going to be a handful. Not as much as you, but still. He turned to Naruto. So what is it that you need, Naruto? Do you have my jutsu down? Naruto grinned. Yep. I'm getting better with it. I can sense stuff that's like 100 yards away, and I can even read signs and other stuff too. It then fell from his face. But that's not why I'm here, Iruka-sensei. I was wondering, what do you know about training an elemental affinity? Iruka smiled when he heard what Naruto was practicing. That's a pretty advanced form of chakra control. You're saying you can water walk and all of that? Naruto nodded and Iruka let off an impressed sound. Well, this coming from the kid that couldn't focus for long enough to balance a leaf on his head. Good for you. He then pondered Naruto's question. Well, something like this isn't supposed to happen overnight. Naruto nodded. I know, and I already know what I'm supposed to be thinking about when I try creating the wind chakra. My chakra is sharp and as thin as I can make it, like the edge of a blade. Iruka scratched the scar on the bridge of his nose as he thought of how to answer. Well, there aren't any tips on how to get it down faster. It is what it is, all you can do now is work until you get it. Letting out a sigh, Naruto placed his hands behind his head and squinted his eyes. Yeah, but there are so many people out there stronger than me, Iruka-sensei. I mean, just on the last big mission I had, it was a close call. If we were fighting a different person then Ino and Shikamaru might have died. By now he was over it, way over it. It had happened, they actually all walked away from the fight in one piece, there was nothing more to dwell on. That still didn't mean that he couldn't use it as a lesson that there was still going to be people out there stronger than him. Iruka placed his hand on top of Naruto's head. You're still a rookie, Naruto. You've got all the time in the world to get better and from the looks of things you're improving quickly. Just take your time. There's no rush at all, I don't want to see you go overboard and burn yourself out. Naruto moved Iruka's hand from his head with a smile. Alright Iruka-sensei, but you won't ever have to worry about me burning out. I can't stop until I get to Hokage Kanai. Hearing the confidence that had seemed lacking earlier slip back into Naruto's voice after his question time was done, Iruka smiled back at his former student. Of course you can't. Good luck, and remember you can always come back and ask me anything. Naruto nodded and gave Iruka a two-fingered salute before making the ram seal and disappearing in a puff of smoke. He can do that already? Whoa. The next day, Asuma and his team stood in the room where missions were accepted, and he noticed his team's eyes harden as they were handed another C-ranked mission from the pile. Calm down you guys, this is C-ranked, not A-ranked like the backup mission we went on. Asuma took the scroll provided for them and led them outside where he stood in front of them and read the mission to them. Alright, we'll be back in a week just like how we were supposed to be the last time. He heard Ino scoff. I said like how we were supposed to. Anyway, this one should be pretty easy. Shikamaru by now was skeptical of whenever anyone said that things would be easy by now, because nothing was ever easy, at least by his standards. So then what are we doing? It's just another simple little transport job. Nothing out of your scope to be able to handle. Asuma said, motioning for them to follow him. Let's go get what we're supposed to be taking. Naruto, Ino, and Shikamaru were all positioned in front of a large cart hauling hundreds of pounds of lumber. All three genin were pulling the materials down the path towards where they were going. Naruto grunted in exertion before speaking. Where is this farm? Asuma walked alongside the cart, keeping watch for any signs of someone looking to boost their hardware for a quick buck, letting his eyes drift towards his genin team every few moments. You guys holding up okay? Do you need a break? Yes. Shikamaru said immediately, getting a glare from both Naruto and Ino, who weren't about to be stuck doing this for a few more extra hours because one of them was lazy. The sooner this ended for them the better. No. Naruto and Ino said simultaneously. Even though in all honesty she could have used one after pushing the cart for several hours, Ino wasn't going to stop first. But looking over at Naruto, other than the act of actually forcing the cart to move, which was at this point basically them using their momentum, Naruto didn't seem fazed at all by the rather hard physical labor. He was always like that, and the other day when Ino took over his clone's body, well, she had never felt so much chakra in her entire life. Inside of his body there was so much energy that she couldn't even stand still, which was why she kept looking all over the body spastically. She was about to take off into a run and do something in it until Naruto asked her to go back into her own body. And the thing about it was, that Kage Bunshin required him to split his chakra evenly between the clones that he made, which means that the single clone he made had half of his chakra, which meant that all that energy she felt wasn't even all of it. She couldn't imagine how Naruto felt all of the time if that were the case. No wonder he thought he could have kept training after they were dismissed that day. Naruto chuckled as he continued to keep the cart moving forward alongside his teammates. Come on Shikamaru, it's just walking. We're just dragging stuff while we're doing it. Shikamaru rolled his eyes. Do you not feel the 400 pounds that we're dragging behind us? Oh, who was he kidding? With all three of them pulling it at the same time, of course Naruto didn't feel it. Both he and Ino could carry at least a good 100 pounds all on their own each, and Naruto was at least twice as strong as they were. Not to mention the fact that he had more energy than Konoha's power substations on his worst day. Where the hell did he get so much energy? It was always that way, even back in school. Naruto was never seen training to get his stamina up above anyone else's, but he was just able to purely outlast everyone else during the physical exercises that they did to condition the students for the things they would do as shinobi. Naruto was giving him a headache making him think about all of this stuff, but since all they were doing was hauling a cart he had plenty of time to think. It's good for you. Asuma said, about them dragging the cart. When was the last time you all did anything physical like this anyway? Just think about how good the trip back will feel without the cart, and that will make you feel better. With that being said, the only sound coming from the immediate area was the sound of the cart's wooden wheels bumping along the road. After a few minutes, Naruto sighed and spoke again, filling in the silence of the ordinary C-rank mission. Seriously Asuma-sensei, where is this farm? Konohagakure no Sato, Hokage Tower. Hiruzen looked over the correspondence from the message that had been sent to Kusagakure. It was much the same as the responses that he had been receiving from other villages. the idea of carrying out the Chunin exams in Konoha this year did not appeal to any of the other villages, and there was no other location that the villages could all agree upon. None of the 5 major villages felt like going to any of the others this year to allow their genin to compete. The old man furrowed his brow as he tried thinking of a solution, as the location had to be finalized within the next month, or else this time around it wouldn't be happening, as at least another month would be needed for preparation. This won't do. All of this back and forth over the matter won't solve anything. What is needed is a neutral site for the exams to take place this time around. A place that none of the other villages can complain about, and joint proctors can be provided from each village. A place that won't tolerate anything other than complete impartiality over the issue. This might solve another problem of accused bias from the hosting villages that inevitably came through year after year, and in all honesty quite a bit of it was well-founded. Even if it hadn't been intended, there was never really a level playing field. Whenever coded messages were used that needed to be deciphered, it was always a code that the host village was already well versed in. Battlefields were usually well suited for use by the hosting competitors' genin due to how they had trained for the duration of their careers. There were a myriad of ways that each time bias was founded, and sometimes a genin passing the exam and getting promoted wound up being because of the village they were in to take the exam in the first place. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was better than arguing back and forth and wasting valuable time that could be better served to set things up. Now, even if the proposition was accepted, it would still need to be cleared with a third party, the country that would be the host of this exam. If everything fell into place as it should, then the plans could be finalized in a matter of around 2 weeks, leaving 6 to 8 weeks for everything else to come together. Plenty of time. Hiruzen smiled triumphantly. It would go through, as no one would have any reasons for things not to proceed as he would suggest. After all, there was no more neutral nation around than Tetsu no Kuni, Land of Iron. With this fact in his head, Hiruzen began writing out a reply to continue correspondence and a proposal to all of the villages that would potentially be sending teams. With things the way they were now, this had the potential to be the largest Chunin exam that had ever been put together. A letter needed to be put out to all of the villages now. This could be a major event seen worldwide, a boon to each participating village's economy and then some. A true joint meeting of the best from the future shinobi of the elemental nations. With Team 10, within Hai no Kuni. It had been a day of travel as the Genin team and their Jonin sensei continued on towards their destination. And even though Naruto's clockwork cry of, "Where is this farm?" was starting to grate on more than a few nerves, Ino and Shikamaru had to agree with him in wondering just where the hell this farm was. And their moods didn't improve in the slightest when they found that the farm they were meant to bring lumber to was positioned in the middle of a rather plentiful forest. It was like a slap across the face to the 3 kids hauling the materials, especially Shikamaru, who had actually deemed it necessary to exert himself dragging that crap all over for an entire day. "Where is this farm, dammit?" Naruto growled out for what seemed like the 1000th time for the span of their mission. Asuma still stayed supervising the trio of genin as they dragged the cart along a forest road. "It's close, just keep on going. If you look hard enough you can see it through the trees. And it's more of a ranch, Naruto." Naruto mumbled as he kept on working. This was like a D-rank mission, except they actually had to travel a ways outside of the village to get it done. "Farm, ranch, whatever. I can't see anything, Asuma-sensei. I can't even get anything with Shakura Hankyuti to no Jutsu, Chakra Echolocation Jutsu. All I get are trees. These woods are pretty thick. Which brings us to part 2 of our mission," Asuma said as he pulled the scroll dictating their mission parameters. "After we deliver the lumber we've been hired on to transport, we're to stay back and protect the livestock and other animals until they can put up the fences that they need to build. That should take a few days." Shikamaru sighed in relief. That sounded good to him. Just watching animals for a few days and nothing else sounded pretty laid back to him. Thank goodness the harder part was about to end. And just as Asuma said, it didn't take much longer for them to finish making their way through the forest to find themselves in a clear-cut area, rather large, with a pretty good-sized house in the middle of the property near a farmhouse. Near the farmhouse there were tons of penned animals, cattle, a lot of cattle. The team finished pulling the cart up to the front of the farmhouse as a young-looking black-haired man in a plain brown shirt and tan pants walked outside overlooking the genin, bringing things to a stop. As soon as they stopped pulling the cart, Shikamaru walked out away a few feet and fell out directly on the ground staring up at the sky from his back. Finally done. The man they had brought the materials to chuckled as he walked towards them. Well, you Konoha ninja sure work fast. I wasn't expecting you all here until at least this evening. You all got here bright and early this morning. Asuma grinned at his team, Ino leaning against the cart, tired from dragging that thing for over a day, and Naruto who yawned as if that was just his warm-up for the day and he was still waking up. Well, there's no reason to go slower if we can actually keep a faster pace, right? It wasn't that far out from Konoha. The man rubbed the back of his head. Yeah, but I don't have any workers here except for me and my little cousins, and they would have been all kinds of useless when it came to dragging that stuff, even though they're just as old as your team here. He extended his hand to Asuma. By the way, Shinobi-san, my name is Kojima Katashi. It's a pleasure to meet you. Likewise. Asuma said, grabbing his hand and shaking it heartily. I am Sarutobi Asuma, and these are my genin. The boy on the ground is Nara Shikamaru, the girl is Yamanaka Ino, and the blonde boy is Uzumaki Naruto. Who's outside? A youthful male voice called out from inside the house as footsteps sounded out towards the front door. And these are my cousins that I had been talking about. Katashi said, gesturing minutely towards the door. The first person outside was a boy around the kid's age with black hair and a straw hat on his head. He wore blue jeans and a dust-colored shirt that had the look of a poncho. This is Shigeru. He looked towards said male younger cousin. Where is your sister? It's about time to start for the day. She's inside. Do you think she'd actually be out here or somewhere else? Shigeru said as he walked down the stairs of the porch, looking at the new arrivals. Who the hell are they? His eyes stopped on Ino, however, who wasn't paying the least bit of attention to him beyond seeing who had asked about them. Katashi pointed at the Konoha ninja with a smile. These are the shinobi I hired to bring the lumber up here and watch over the cattle until the fence is built, since you and Kiyomi fought so hard to not drag last of the stuff that I had to buy back here. He finished chidingly. That was a seriously long trip back here. Shigeru complained, and you wanted us to drag that stuff all that way? What are we, the cattle we keep? Oi. Naruto and Ino replied indignantly at being compared to cattle. Shikamaru didn't respond because he was busy catching up on the sleep he had missed that morning. Right there on the ground. Whose cattle? Shigeru waved his hands in front of his face indignantly and hurriedly made his way over to Ino. I didn't mean you, of course. No way. I was just saying. Why is he trying to apologize to just her? Naruto said to himself. He insulted all three of us, right, Shikamaru? He looked over at Shikamaru, who was on his back with his eyes closed on the ground. If you don't stop acting like you're asleep, I'm going to draw on your face again. Shikamaru immediately sat up with a groan. Damn you, Naruto. Can't a guy take a break? His response was a fleet kick to his side from said blonde bastard. Yes, I'm a bastard. Naruto said, shrugging his shoulders and kicking Shikamaru playfully 3 more times. Or have you met my father? Katashi turned towards the house and yelled through the open door. Kiyomi, get out here already. I already let you 2 sleep late today because supplies were still getting here. I'm coming. A girl's voice yelled from inside before rapid footsteps made it outside. A girl with black hair like Shigeru and Katashi appeared on the front steps, only hers had been done in twin braids down her back. She wore jean shorts that came to her thighs and a white shirt over a jean vest to go along with white boots and gloves. Is it time to work already? She said, blocking a yawn from coming forth. You've got it. Katashi said, meet the group of ninja that will be keeping watch over the cattle until everything is done. The leader Asuma-san, and the genin under his command, Ino, Shikamaru, and Naruto. Shigeru grinned at Ino lecherously. So your name is Ino, is it? It's fitting for someone as pretty as you. Yeah. I guess. She said with a sigh. It really didn't as far as she was concerned, and she could tell already that this was going to be a long few days. Naruto grabbed Shikamaru by the back of his vest and yanked him to his feet. Say hi, Shikamaru. Even you can do that. Whatever. He muttered before stepping back as he found the girl Kiyomi danger close to him. Can I help you? Kiyomi had a light blush on her face as she studied Shikamaru. So you're here to help us out for a few days. Shikamaru looked over at Naruto, who gave him a look saying that he was just as lost as he was. So what can you tell me about yourself? Like what do you like to do? Who cares? Shikamaru thought as he took a few steps back. Nothing. I don't like doing anything, he said. Kiyomi frowned when Naruto spoke up. He's seriously telling the truth, he doesn't like doing anything. He then recoiled slightly when he felt the girl's glare on him. I wasn't asking you. She growled out before changing back to a sweet tone and looking at Shikamaru. I was asking Shikamaru-kun here. Naruto felt rather offended at how he had been treated not even 5 minutes into meeting these people, and then finally noticed Shigeru hitting on Ino as she steadily ignored him and tried blowing him off. With a sigh he walked over to Asuma and Katashi, shaking his head. This is going to be a long goddamn mission, isn't it? Sorry about that. Katashi said to the shorter blonde boy, my aunt and uncle gave me the money to buy this land and cattle to start my business on the condition that I would take my little cousins and show them the concept of hard work. It hasn't really worked though, since they're both kind of brats. Naruto suggested, turning around to see his 2 unfortunate teammates and the 2 siblings that had apparently found love at first sight. Asuma palmed his face at Naruto's choice of words. What? We were all thinking it, I just said it out loud. Katashi crossed his arms over his chest. Well, he's not really that far off with it, to be honest. But today they're going to be working their tails off, because now that we have all of the lumber I sent out for, we can get to building the property gate around the farm. Naruto looked up at Asuma, who knew what Naruto wanted to ask. No, he didn't pay for you guys to build the fence as well, he just paid for us to transport the materials and guard the cattle until everything was all up. Hearing that, Naruto's eyes lit up. So other than watching the cattle we don't have anything else to do. If all he had to do was babysit some stupid cows for a few hours and in return he could do whatever he wanted, then maybe he could get in some training and make this trip a little productive. That's right, Asuma said before he found that Naruto had darted away to the pen holding the cattle, shouting that he had the first watch shift at the top of his lungs, speeding past his teammates. Wow, Katashi said as he could still see the dust that Naruto had kicked up from running towards the pen. Good little ethic in that one. He scratched his head and called out to his cousins, Shigeru, Kiyomi, help the Naruto kid get the cattle out to graze around the area, and then you can help me get to work on putting up the fence around the property. The 2 younger family members of Katashi jolted to attention and ran off to do as instructed. Asuma called his genin over and gave them the rundown of how things would go. Naruto's watching the cattle first while they graze. It'll be either one or the other's job after that, this afternoon and early in the evening. Any questions? Ino and Shikamaru shook their heads to show that they didn't have any. Until then you 2 can do whatever you want, just be ready for your shift. You can both decide who gets that one. Shikamaru waved and went off to find a quiet spot. What was that, Asuma? Did you say, go ahead and find a quiet spot to catch some Z's, Shikamaru? Naruto will find you and kick you awake when it's your turn. I'm way ahead of you. Ino watched her lazier teammate leave and she turned her attention back to her sensei. Well, while I'm waiting for something to do, I think I should test out a poison I made on myself. Asuma went wide-eyed at her. You made a poison? He then picked up the second half of what she said. You're going to test it on yourself? What the hell's wrong with you? You're on a mission. This is no time to build up an immunity to something. Ino laughed slightly. It's a weak numbing poison, Asuma-sensei. I wouldn't use anything worse than that. I can't even make the good stuff yet. She then scowled, though maybe I should use the hallucinogen. It would really make dealing with that punk Shigeru more amusing later. Asuma weighed the benefits of Ino walking around until her shift either physically numb, or mentally out of it, and figured that the latter was more dangerous for everyone. Why don't you save that second one until you get back home? He didn't want her to potentially go berserk because she was building an immunity to something. You can use the first one if you're sure it will wear off by the time you have to go on watch. Ino nodded brightly. I'm not sure how long it will take to wear off since I don't know for sure, but it won't last any longer than a few hours, I'm sure. Maybe a day. On second thought, if Ino were out of commission for a bit, then Shikamaru would have to do actual work. Do you have the antidote? Ino pulled it out of her supply pouch and presented it to him. Then you might as well do it now. He shooed her off and rubbed his temple. A slacker with a genius IQ and no desire to actually use it, a loud mouth that can steal your body and then poison it, and the single most impulsive genin in Konoha. Ladies and gentlemen, let me present to you Team 10. he said, starting a slow clap for the benefit of no one. Katashi's sweat dropped and gave him a dry look. Are they really that bad? And right on cue. Who? Naruto yelled, waving a machete around wildly as he chased a herd of cattle out into the open fields with a bunch of his Kage Bunshin. I've been drinking green tea all goddamn morning. I pray to Kami every goddamn Sunday. You're gon' bring out the demons in me. Ya bitch, ya. Asuma didn't even visibly respond, having become more or less accustomed to it by now, while on the other hand Katashi was staring at Naruto and clones in horror. Naruto, don't you injure any of those cattle with that damn thing, that's money you're scaring the hell out of. Asuma yelled to him before placing a cigarette in his own mouth and lighting it. I know. He yelled back at his sensei before turning a manic grin to the cattle. I want some steak with my next meal, dammit, dateba yo. Get in my ramen. Turning back to Katashi, Asuma offered him a cigarette only for the man to robotically shake his head as he saw his cousins walk after in an effort to keep pace with Naruto. I wonder how well he can even use that thing. He's never asked me about it. He mused mostly to himself. Katashi waved his arms frantically at his cousins. Get the horses. Don't try to follow them on foot, you guys. That ninja kid is way faster than you. Don't let them run free like that. Anime tears started streaming down his face. Why is good help so hard to find? He cried desperately. Asuma blew out a plume of smoke and patted the younger man on the back. Because first of all, you aren't paying for it. Cheer up, it's not that bad. Hours later. Naruto stood by the grazing cattle with a leaf in his hand while the sounds of stakes being hammered into the ground rang out. While Katashi would dig holes for the poles, Shigeru would set them and hammer them in, and Kiyomi would place the fence portions in while they kept working. Why isn't Ninja Boy here helping us? He's about as useful as a poop-flavored lollipop. Shigeru said out loud. Because we didn't pay him to, so this isn't his job. Katashi said as his shovel kept forming holes for the fence posts. All he's doing is making sure the cattle don't wander off while they graze and get hurt. Those clone things of his are doing a great job of that. If he wants to stare at a leaf, he can do that. Naruto got a tick mark on his head, but they weren't shinobi. How would they know that he was training? All he had to do was focus on his training. Split the leaf. Sharper, thinner, get his chakra the way it needed to be. He was going to get this down in no time, he just knew it. Shigeru then commented again, I wish his teammate was here, the hot one, Ino. Naruto rolled his eyes and tried to ignore him. Did you see her playing hard to get? I wish my Shikamaru-kun was here. Kiyomi said rather dreamily with a sigh, his attitude is so hot, he acts so detached, but I know he's a softie. And I know he'd help us out without any questions. Naruto's eye started to twitch. I'm not getting paid for this, and I don't like any of you enough to help, except for maybe Katashi. He's alright. Besides, if that girl thought Shikamaru would lift a finger to help out, she obviously didn't know a damn thing about the guy. She'd probably be one of those girls that went gaga over Sasuke back in Konoha if she thought Shikamaru's attitude was cool. Alright, focus on the job, you guys. Katashi said as he moved on to digging another hole, his pace far outworking the others by this time. The faster we work, the sooner we finish up. As long as this fence isn't up, the cattle can wander off easier in the middle of grazing, and from there who knows what can happen to them. Kiyomi shook her head as she went to grab some more lumber. I don't know why you decided to do this with your life, Katashi. Our parents would have kept supporting you, we never really saw why you wanted to raise cattle like this. Katashi frowned, because I wanted to make my own way in the world, not ride along on my family's coattails. How could I mooch when your parents did so much for me already after my own died? I'm going to make my own money and I'm going to pay them back for everything they've done for me. You've got to learn how to do things yourself once in a while. I still don't get it. Shigeru whispered to his sister, who nodded. He doesn't have to do this, it seems really useless to me. He's doing it for himself. Naruto said to the both of them, surprising them that he had been listening. He's trying to prove that he's his own person and that people can rely on him. I kind of know where he's coming from on that. As they thought about what both Naruto and Katashi said, Shikamaru came up and tapped Naruto on the shoulder. Hey, your shift is over. I'm taking the late afternoon and early evening shift. Naruto looked at Shikamaru and tilted his head. Really? You're actually taking a shift? Did Ino threaten you? He questioned. Shikamaru frowned, hardly. Is it really that unbelievable that I came here all on my own? Naruto gave him a deadpan look in return. Okay, Ino can barely move because she's apparently building up an immunity to something. It's not close to being fatal, but she has terrible mobility and wouldn't be any good trying anything with herding these cattle back into the pen. Naruto grinned and patted Shikamaru on the shoulder. Well, in that case, have fun looking out for the cows. You saw them all on the way here, and I'm just going to dispel my clones because I'm training. I need all of that chakra. Naruto almost skipped away, he was so happy to leave the area. Shikamaru-kun. Kiyomi shouted out to him, waving happily, would you mind helping us out with this? Yeah, I would. Shikamaru said as he turned around to watch the cattle graze. This wouldn't actually be that bad until it was time to put them back in their pen. Watching these cattle would be right up his alley, he thought to himself as he sat down in the grass and watched. He had a lot of things to ponder about anyway, like Naruto. After months of being on the same team, he had yet to figure out what made Naruto tick exactly. The kid was a mystery and there were no clues in his reach. He's so cool. Kiyomi said, getting his attention, so calm and aloof. I wonder what he's thinking. Shikamaru heard her say. A hidden location, Hai no Kuni. Do ya know how much money all of that guy's cattle'll bring us? A man said before cackling manically, he's just a baby rancher, the guy probably doesn't even have the heart to brand any of those things. If he's the guy running the place, then taking those stupid things'll be like taking candy from a screamin' brat. Another more gruff voice spoke up in response, be quiet, K. Don't think about the money we'll get until we take the livestock. Then once we've sold them off you can think about it. Mao, you're so boring, Manabu. The cackling voice of K said again, can't ya let a guy fantasize about living large for a moment? Yeah, big stick in the mud. Now brothers. A third calm and authoritative voice said, getting the other two to pay attention to him, it won't matter after tonight because K's daydream will be real. This little ranch hand and his little brat cousins won't dare raise a hand against the Unikawa brothers. Sure thing / yes, Satoshi Onizuma. Both K and Manabu said respectively. Satoshi chuckled softly, now my dear little brothers. Prepare for tonight, we move on that little ranch then. That night, Kojima Ranch. Stop messing with that leaf, Naruto. Ino said in a rather strained voice as she slowly stood up from the kitchen table inside of Katashi's house. Naruto was sitting down across from her staring at that leaf like the world ended with it. You've been trying to cut it all afternoon since you came back in. Naruto looked up from the leaf at the blonde girl sitting across from him. Yeah, well, you've been sitting there all day doing nothing. Ino's eye twitched as the feeling started coming back to her body quicker than before. I used more poison than I thought. You should have known that when you sat here and tickled me for 10 minutes when you first walked in, you bastard. And there had been nothing that she could do since he and her were the only ones in the house. Yelling for Asuma wouldn't have done any good. A seductive smirk came over her face after thinking about it for a moment. Did you like touching my body like that, Naruto? Naruto's face started turning red. You're wearing bandages under your clothes. I didn't really touch anything. He muttered, turning away from her. Ino batted her eyes at him to tease him further. That's no excuse, you liar. If you couldn't feel anything, then you wouldn't have done it for so long. Even when you do stuff like that, you're so gentle with me. It's so sweet how you take care of your Ino-chan. I always knew you were the more responsible one to put in charge of my body. Tickle her when she couldn't fight back, would he? It's a good thing that no matter what she could always push his buttons like this. Stop saying stuff like that, dammit. Naruto said, pulling his bandana up over his face to cover his red cheeks. It's not fair. I can't do this kind of stuff to you. Ino sauntered over to him as he had his back turned and draped herself over his back and the back of his chair. Why? What's wrong with touching me? I'm just your long-lost little sister, aren't I? She then lowered her voice to a whisper as she pulled his bandana back down to his neck. You've never done anything naughty with my body while I wasn't in it, have you, Goldie-kun? Naruto was about to yell at her, but found that he couldn't muster up the voice to do it. Just the tone of voice Ino used made him shiver. In his opinion, she just had to find a way to use that in her fighting. although maybe he was the only person that it would work on. I'm not hearing a no. Ino chided further, right next to his ear, you big perv. Not a perv. Naruto growled out as footsteps from upstairs eventually led to Kiyomi walking in, and Ino slipping back into her seat almost unnoticed by Naruto. The lack of her pleasant scent in his sinuses was his only initial indication. And the extremely satisfied look she had on her face due to making the last few moments very hard for him was very hard to ignore, especially when she winked at him. Kiyomi walked in and placed her hands on her hips with a pout. Where is Shikamaru-kun? He should have come in by now. Even Katashi came in. Naruto and Ino both frowned at her. Naruto's was far more pronounced though. Katashi had let them stop for a short rest and for a little snack, and they had never gone back outside, even when he did. Ino stood up from her chair and headed towards the outside. He's probably bumming around somewhere outside. I'll go find him. I need a walk anyway. She said, cracking her back, stiff from her numbing poison. I'll just stretch my legs a bit. Go ahead. I'll just keep trying to split this dash dot. He looked at the leaf in his hand, crumbled from when Ino had been making him hot under the collar. God damn it. He muttered before standing up and leaving Kiyomi in the house as well as he went out the back. If you see him, tell Asuma-sensei I went to take a walk and get another leaf. I'll be back in like 10 or 20 minutes. With Ino. Come on you lazy jerk, where are you? Ino asked rhetorically, not really expecting any kind of answer as she walked outside. She had gone all around the pens and she already knew that Shikamaru wasn't in the house. Are you really going to make me look all over for you? He hadn't been seen since he somehow got all of the cattle back into their pen, though she was sure that Katashi did most of the work there. As Ino walked out away from where the cattle pens were placed away from the barn and ranch house out into the open fields, she figured he must have taken the time after putting the animals up to hang out and look at clouds. He probably fell asleep outside or something. She thought with a humored smile. Well, hello there, Ino-chan. She cringed once she heard that voice. What are you doing out here all by yourself? Ino turned around and put a strained smile on her face. Hello, Shiger. I'm just taking a little walk, stretching my legs out a bit. She said, but her thoughts were quite different. Go away. You're not nearly good looking enough to make up for the fact that you're a brat and have a shitty attitude. Shiger walked around with his hands in his pockets trying to look cool. Yeah, I guess if I had to deal with that blonde kid all of the time I'd want to take a break when I could too. You had to spend most of the day with the guy. I could barely take 4 hours around him. Ino got a tick mark on her head when she heard him start talking about who she knew to be Naruto. The guy's so weird, and I can't even believe he's a ninja. He's shorter than me. He said with a small laugh. I don't know how someone like you could stand being around the guy. I can stand being around the guy because he's a friend. I can stand him because he makes being on this team fun, because he thinks we're more important than him. Naruto's 4 times the man you'll ever be, you stupid punk, shorter than you or not, and it's not by that much. We're not old enough for it to matter. Ino thought to herself as she held her teeth tight. Shigeru obviously didn't sense Ino's disdain for him, so why don't you spend your time with me? You shouldn't be all by yourself even if I could understand why you'd want to be. Ino furrowed her brow rather angrily. Didn't this guy get it yet? If she had given a damn and had shown the least little bit of interest in the jerk, she would have said something hours ago. Look, I'm really busy right now. I can't really socialize, I'm on a mission. Hey. Now wait just a damn minute. Shigeru said forcefully, reaching out and grabbing a hold of Ino's arm. You should listen to me, I can dash dot. And laying a hand on her was his mistake. When fighting Naruto she was outclassed, but that was Naruto, and she'd pay money to see any genin go head to head with Naruto and see how they did. Shigeru wasn't Naruto, he wasn't even close to being as strong, and his grip was like someone wrapped a cobweb around her wrist. Without even registering what had happened, Shigeru found himself face first against the ground with a mouthful of grass and dirt as Ino had a knee in his back and his arm bent behind him. Don't touch me, you toad. I don't appreciate you trying to cut down my teammate, and I don't want you hitting on me. Now go back to the house before you get yourself hurt and stop thinking with that thing between your legs. We're 12, you idiot. She said as she let go of him and walked away. She almost snapped his arm like a twig. What the fuck was he thinking trying to lay a single hand on her? Shigeru sat up, spitting out the soil he had taken a big bite out of when Ino slammed him to the ground. "What's your problem, you bitch? I'm going to dash dot." He shut his mouth when a kunai neatly deposited itself blade first in the space between his legs on the ground. "Please go back to the damn house and leave me alone," Ino said to him in a sickly sweet voice that actually put a chill down his spine. She had her back turned to him although she didn't walk forward another step, now. She didn't turn around to see, but she could hear him clamber to his feet and run away from her at full speed. Once she was sure he had gotten far enough away she let out a sigh and brushed her bang out of her face. "Okay, now I really do need to take a walk. If I see that asshole again when I go back to the house I might do something I'll pay for later." She took pride in her appearance as did many kunoichi, but the phrase, "look but don't touch," could never have been more fitting for another group of women than female ninja. What exactly was Shigeru's grand plan? Hope she didn't tell anyone after he tried to force himself on her. Even if she hadn't been able to defend herself there was still the fact that after he had gotten away with taking advantage of her, Asuma, Shikamaru, and Naruto would have ripped his innards out with their bare hands for it. They were paid to protect the cattle, not the punk kid that was supposed to work on the ranch. Ino stopped walking and stewing in anger when she heard a squish under one of her feet. She looked down and paled when she saw that she had stepped in something dark brown that she hadn't seen due to it being dark out. "You. That better not be what I think it is. Stupid ranch." She lifted her foot only to find it stuck fast to the ground. What the dash? It was at that point that she began to hear cackling from the open space. "Who's there?" "Well, I was hoping to get one of those rancher brats as a hostage to make sure we got away clean or at least use my jutsu to slow down any pursuit attempts, but it looks like I caught something way prettier," a man said as he walked over to Ino with his hands in his pockets. He had long spiky brown hair that traveled down his back all the way to his knees and he seemed hunched over somewhat. He wore no shirt and loose brown pants with black sandals on his feet. "Who the hell are you?" Ino asked him, trying to buy time as she was still trying to pull her foot free from whatever it was stuck in. Maybe she could get enough time to shimmy her foot out of her sandal. The man stopped and grinned manically at her before bowing in a grand gesture. "Where are my manners?" he said before breaking into rather wild laughter. "Quahahaha. My name is Unico Wake, rogue ninja and all-around friendly guy at your service." Ino narrowed her eyes at him. "Another nukenin." She opened her mouth to keep him talking. "What do you want? Why did you want a hostage?" Kay cackled again. "Well, me and my two older brothers were looking to liberate these lovely cattle from this upstart wannabe rancher punk, yeah no? Get 'em with someone that properly deserves the profits they'd net. Like us." "Quahahaha. You're a thief," Ino accused him, still trying to subtly work her foot free. "Thief, bandit, crook, outlaw. I personally prefer being called a desperado quite personally," Kay said as he held back his laughter. "I swear. You and your brothers steal a few kinjutsu from your village and suddenly it gets so hard to make a living. Though I guess the people trying to kill you would do that, huh?" He pulled his hands from his pocket to reveal a claw weapon on his right hand. "Now it's time to come with me and all of that livestock my brothers made away with, my dear." "Yeah, I'll do that," Ino said just as she finally worked her foot free of the substance she had been caught in and she drew a kunai, not. "Oh feisty," Kay said as he jumped back to stay away from Ino, "but do ya think I anticipated someone walking into that exact spot only? Keep your eyes open, girly." Ino looked down and saw that she was about to step in another pile of whatever it is she had stepped in the first time and stopped abruptly. Kay smirked and took advantage of her misstep, driving a kick hard into her body that sent her flying back across the ground. "Oops, I guess ya should have been looking at me after all. Sorry." Ino attempted to get back up only to find herself stuck to the ground by her forearm that held her kunai. What now?" Kay laughed loudly when he saw her stuck again. "My stolen jutsu, Takumina Nunchaku Hissen, skillful sticky splatter. I can form a material inside of my body and then use it to set traps or hold my enemies down or whatever I want. It's like rubber cement, ya won't break it by just pulling on it." The way she was trapped, her kunai was stuck as well so she couldn't even try to cut herself free. Ino slipped her trapped arm out of her arm warmer. "Okay, this isn't good. I'm far away from the house. There's got to be some way to tell my team where I am." In the meantime he's so much faster than me though, I have to slow him down somehow. She thought as Kay ran towards her again. Kay had his claw drawn back, ready to strike. I'll cut a few chunks out of that body of yours. It doesn't matter as long as you're alive to be a hostage for us. Ino would often hide it with her evasiveness in spars, but the fact was that she had no business in a taijutsu battle, and now instead of just having to deal with fists she had to contest against a claw. No thank you, she didn't want any part of that. Ino, now disarmed, had to find a new way to fend off a few strikes from the berserk Kay, who took a sniff of the air and grew more depraved looking than before. A blonde, from Konoha by the looks of the thing around your waist, and ya smell heavily of flowers of all kinds seemingly mixed together. Ya wouldn't happen to be a Yamanaka by any chance, would ya? Why do you care? Ino said as she backed away from him and watched his eyes shine over in delight. That's great. He shouted, licking his lips, a big-time Konoha clan like that would probably have tons of money to pay for ya if we could catch ya. And even if I killed ya, I'm sure we could sell your corpse to some other village for big bucks. Hey, another hidden village would probably pay more for ya if we left ya alive. Those clan secrets of yours and all. Ino took a step back as his body started to shake as if he were having a small seizure. Okay then, no more holding back on ya sweetie. Here's the scatter shot, Taku Minen and Chaku Hissen, skillful sticky splatter. Ino watched Kay jump into the air and spin rapidly as he began to shoot brown globs out of his mouth at a fast pace all over the place. The ground was littered with brown stains from the jutsu, and after all was said and done Ino even had taken a few direct hits with the stuff. So gross. She said to herself as she had to keep from trying to wipe it off of her clothes lest she wind up sticking her hands to them. Kay then landed directly on the ground, grinning madly at her. That bastard can't even catch himself in his own stuff. That's so unfair. Not only did Ino have to watch her own step lest she get caught again, her opponent didn't have the same issue and he was already faster than her to begin with. Ino dodged a few more swipes until another splat noise told her she had caught her bare foot in the substance. Keeping her eyes on the entire field and her enemy at the same time was very tough for her to do. Gotcha! Kay lunged towards her in a stab with his claw, intending to go right through her. Ino slid back on her free foot with her other one stuck. She placed herself in a split, dodging the stab of the claws, and saw an opening that she just couldn't pass up. She cocked her right hand back and let it go just as hard as she could right into Kay's proverbial twig and berries. Kay let out a breathless gasp and backed away, holding his goods with a look of horror on his face. Ino smirked at getting a momentary reprieve, but that wouldn't keep any ninja worth a damn down for any good length of time, and her leg was still stuck. She reached for the supply pouch she kept on the back of her hip and felt around for a kunai to try and cut herself free with while she had the chance. You little bitch. Kay growled as he stopped dry heaving over his testicular damage. I'll ransom you back to Konoha in pieces. 10,000 ryo for a finger, 50,000 for a limb, 100,000 ryo for your head. He yelled as he ran towards her, swinging his claw wildly in rage. Come on. Ino's hands fumbled around in her pouch before she finally grabbed a kunai and pulled it out in a vain attempt to try and defend herself from her place on the ground. Ino! Two masculine voices yelled out before a loud clang of metal rang out in front of her. Ino blinked at the sight of an orange short-sleeved jacket, the back of which had a swirl emblem on it set in front of her. As she focused what had been her moments before death tunnel vision back on the wide scope of things, she saw Naruto standing in front of her, protecting her from Kay's claw. Are you alright? She heard him ask her. Yeah, I'm fine. Ino replied, grateful for the timely intervention. How did you know I was here? Flashback, just after Ino and Shigeru's encounter. In his search for another leaf to cut, Naruto had run into Asuma and both had decided to walk back to the house with Asuma enjoying the quiet night with a calming smoke. Asuma at first had thought that Naruto had cut the leaf and was about to show his amazement when Naruto told him that hadn't been the case. When grilled on what exactly happened to the leaf, Naruto kept mum on the matter. As they both came out front of the house, they saw Shigeru standing outside holding his arm and yelling somewhat at Katashi, that Konoha girl tried to break my arm. Well, what did you do to her? They heard a lazy voice call out as the barn door opened to reveal a seemingly well-rested Shikamaru with some straw in his hair that he picked out. Ino's troublesome, but she knows better than to just beat people up, so what did you do? Shigeru glared at Shikamaru only to get one right back that made him back down quickly. He turned to find Asuma and Naruto staring at him coldly as well, and when he was about to complain about it to Katashi he saw the man sitting on the front step of the house giving him a stern gaze that showed no pity. So what did you do? You lie to me and I swear to Kami I'll work you into a puddle for the rest of your stay here. Feeling the triangle of pressure from every male on the ranch at the moment, Shigeru tried to word his way out of trouble. All I was doing was trying to show her a good time, you know? It gets boring out here. However, that wording didn't fool Katashi in the least as he angrily stood up. You what? Don't try to spruce it up, you tried to force yourself on her didn't you? What the fuck's wrong with you? You're 12. In a flash, Shigeru found himself on the ground bleeding from the mouth after taking a punch from Naruto as Asuma didn't even attempt to hold him back. You son of a bitch. Before Naruto could step towards him again, Asuma grabbed a hold of him this time and turned him around. Go find Ino, alright? I'll take care of this. He turned towards Shikamaru who was glaring down at Shigeru with his fists shaking. Shikamaru, go with him and cool off. That's an order. Shikamaru looked up at his sensei and nodded as he and Naruto walked away, neither of them taking their eyes off of Shigeru until they got further than 30 yards away. Shigeru wiped the blood from his lip and worked his jaw in case Naruto had fractured it or something before standing back up. Before he could even try to walk away, Katashi turned him around abruptly and punched him in the face himself, laying him out on the ground. Katashi cracked his knuckles as he glared down at the boy. Sorry about all of this, Asuma-san. Apparently I need to work some goddamned conduct into him too before I send him back to his parents. Kiyomi walked outside and saw Shigeru on the ground. What happened? Your brother tried to force himself on a girl. Katashi said without the least bit of remorse for what he just did. You guys have been wasting my time for the last month since I got you out here. Tomorrow you're both going to learn the value of work the hard way. But you'll be getting it far easier than Shigeru, so just be ready. Hearing how serious and angry Katashi's voice was, all Kiyomi could do was just nod. Good. Now go back inside and get ready to eat. The food should be ready by now. Meanwhile, Shikamaru and Naruto stomped off to look for Ino as the genius looked over at his blonde comrade. So I take it you're more pissed off than me somehow. Damn right. Naruto growled out, trying to mess with Ino like that and try to pin it on her. If anyone's going to make my teammate cranky and psychotic, it's gonna be me. End flashback. Naruto struggled against Kei as he answered her, me, and Asuma-sensei showed up just in time to find Shigeru team complaining about you putting him face first in the dirt. I went looking for you and found Shikamaru who heard what had happened too, and when I tried sensing you out I felt someone else with you fighting you. The cattle are gone. Ino said as she tried in vain to pull her leg free. We know. Naruto assured her. A clone already went to tell Asuma-sensei and Katashi. His attention was then fully on Kei, whose stab attempt he had blocked by holding his machete up, holding the weapon in place between the claws. This guy probably stole them, didn't he? Got it in one runt. Kei taunted as he tried to push down and drive his claws into Naruto. The cattle belong to me and my brothers now, so why don't ya just give it up? I've got a better idea. As another voice rang through Kei's ears, he felt himself go rigid and unable to move. Kagemon no Jutsu, Shadow Posse's Ion Jutsu, complete. How did you sneak up on me? Kei asked as he was unable to turn his head, but could feel Shikamaru's presence behind him. I walked. Shikamaru admitted. You always notice whenever someone tries to sneak up on you, but you never see it coming when someone just walks past you normally. Naruto already had Ino covered, there wasn't a rush. Now you said something about cattle missing. Kei cackled, it's too late now. With my brother's abilities they've gotten the animals far away from here by now. I'll never tell you anything. It was always going to be death for us, we're missing ninja. Nothing you do to me would get me to sell out my own blood. My only allegiance is to Satoshi Onizuma. Shikamaru rubbed the back of his head. Man, you're going to make this hard, we're going to find them anyway. Unless they're herding them through the thick woods, there's only one way they could have used to take the cattle, and we have a walking sonar with us. We don't really need you. And you're expendable. Naruto said to him, holding the machete to his neck close enough to draw blood. Shikamaru didn't really want to kill anyone though. Ino, can you read his mind? She shook her head side to side. No. That's a super advanced technique that Daddy didn't let me learn yet. He says it's for people that intend to go into interrogation. I don't know it. Well, we can't just wait. Shikamaru tried to think about how they would handle this. Oh, for fuck's sake. Kei thought to himself as he rolled his eyes. Stupid brats, he was caught by a bunch of genin. Didn't they realize that the longer they waited the further away his brothers would get? Shikamaru finally let out a sigh after thinking for a bit and looked at Naruto. Are you good to go? Naruto nodded firmly and the pineapple-haired genin looked at Ino. Ino, turn around right now. Ino did it with a frown on her face, averting her eyes from Naruto and Kei. Go ahead Naruto, we're wasting time with this guy. Kei's eyes widened as he felt Naruto draw the machete across his throat cleanly, so the brats had the sack to go through with it after all. His body was being held up by Shikamaru's jutsu, keeping control of his body as he steadily lost blood from his neck and choked on it. Eventually he let off a death rattle and Shikamaru let his body drop to the ground, free of his jutsu. Ino kept her eyes shut until she felt Naruto grab her ankle and cut her leg free. Thank you Naruto, she said, getting a nod from him as Shikamaru threw her the missing sandal that he had managed to cut free in the meantime. To date, Naruto had been the only one out of them to directly kill someone, and now that count was up to 3. From the way he wiped his blade clean on the grass and sheathed it, it was obvious that even though he clearly didn't like it, he could and would do such. They all knew how to kill, but watching a person die was way different than watching the small animals they had been forced to put an end to in the academy in preparation. Let's go, Shikamaru said once he saw Naruto was finished and ready to continue on. They could have only taken the main road out of here with all of those cattle, and we can't wait for Asuma to get here, whatever he's doing. As troublesome as it is, it's up to us for now. Ino finished securing her shoe back onto her foot and stood up, ready to keep going. Right. She had been saved yet again. It was time to show that she could be useful when it counted. As a member of this team she had to better carry her own weight. Does this still qualify as a C-ranked mission? She asked Shikamaru absently. How to train your genin, tip 10. Professionalism. Ninja are not normal people, period. The fact that no shinobi worth their salt doesn't have something about them that sets them apart from the other regular people walking down the street proves this point clearly. I'm nothing special as far as regular shinobi go, but I'll say that I'm one hell of a code breaker and a heck of a smart cookie. And if you ever spoke to anyone that met me they would say that I'm extremely strange, and honestly I'd have to agree. Eccentricity is the name of the game. When you want to hire a shinobi that knows how to get the job they were instructed to do done, the crazier the better usually, but on the other hand going too far with it will not do for repeat patronage in the future to your hidden village. Most experienced ninja know this, so for all of the Jonin sensei out there, please keep your genin on something of a tight leash when out and about and in direct contact with your client. Be friendly when you can, and don't be overbearing or too scary to the civvies. Always work hard and complete the mission as efficiently as your ethics and the circumstances at hand will allow. You represent the shinobi program and the entire village when you go out to work, and whatever you and your team wind up doing please make sure things shine through for us all in a good light. The pay we get from clients that like our work and choose to hire us again for more expensive matters is very important in case you weren't aware. Now go out and make us some money dummies. Shiho. That's it for part 5. Thank you for watching and see you on the next video.